Welcome to our deep dive into UFO sightings
Oh, yeah, we're going worldwide for this one.
from all over the globe. And we've got Chris Rutkowski's book, A World of UFOs, to help us navigate all of this.
Great book. Lots of information. Everything from the really famous cases like Roswell
Yeah.
to some that you've probably never even heard of
That's going to be
from
interesting.
all over the planet.
I love that Rutkowski just comes right out and says, look, UFOs, they exist. No question. But then the question becomes, what are people actually seeing?
That's the real mystery, right?
Right.
Because some of them, yeah, it's a misidentified airplane or maybe it's some weird weather phenomenon.
Yeah.
But then there's those cases where you're just like, what was that?
What was that?
And that's what we're going to look at today.
Exactly.
Like the Roswell crash back in 1947. A rancher in New Mexico finds all this debris scattered across his land.
Like what kind of debris?
Stuff that doesn't look like it came from a plane.
Okay.
Metallic strips, they described them like I-beams. Something really unusual. And then, of course, the military comes in and initially they say, oh, it's a flying disc, and then very quickly change the story and say, oh, it's a weather balloon.
Right.
And that's what gets everyone all riled up.
Yeah, and it just kind of snowballed from there.
And that really got things going.
Yeah, like researchers like Stanton Friedman, he starts digging into it, finds people who claim they saw alien bodies.
Whoa.
The government keeps changing their story. Then in 1994, they try to put everything to rest.
Oh, yeah.
And they say, okay, it was Project Mogul, it was this top secret program.
To do what?
They were trying to monitor Soviet nuclear tests. But even with that explanation, people still aren't convinced.
Still debating it to this day.
Yeah.
And that just shows you the power of secrecy, right?
Oh, absolutely. Look at what happened with Walter Haut. He was the public information officer at Roswell. After he died, this confession comes out
Oh, really?
where he says, yeah, I handled the crash debris
Right.
and I saw the bodies. The thing is, when he was alive, he always denied this.
So what's going on? Was this like a real deathbed confession?
Mm-hmm.
Or was it planned
To come out late.
to come out after he was gone? Makes you wonder, right?
Absolutely. Let's switch gears to something a little different but equally as strange. We got to talk about alien abductions, and what better case than Barney and Betty Hill?
Oh, yeah, 1961, driving home, see a strange light, and then suddenly, boom, hours are
Oh,
missing.
gone. Just like that.
Poof,
Yeah.
vanished.
Uh.
And then Betty starts having these really vivid dreams about being examined on a spacecraft. They go under hypnosis.
Oh, wow.
And Betty even draws this star map
A stall bath.
that she says shows where the aliens came from.
That hypnosis thing always raises a lot of questions, though.
Yeah, for sure.
Some people think it can unlock hidden memories,
Mm-hmm.
but other people think it can actually create false memories.
It can be really tricky to work with.
So it's really hard to know what to make of the Hills story, but whatever happened to them, you can't deny it's a powerful example of memory and trauma and just the general weirdness of the unexplained.
It is, yeah. It's also interesting that they didn't talk about their experience for a while. Months went by.
They kept it quiet.
Yeah. Makes you wonder what finally made them decide to go public. What changed?
Lots of speculation about that. Okay, let's hop over to England.
Darn.
I've got to talk about the Rendlesham Forest incident in 1980.
Oh, yeah, this one's a classic.
At an Air Force base, multiple military personnel see strange lights in the forest.
And they actually have close encounters with this unidentified object.
Wow.
It's not just lights in the sky, though. Sergeant Peniston, he gets up close to the object,
Oh, no.
sees these bizarre symbols. Says time felt distorted.
Time felt distorted, yeah.
Yeah, like it was moving differently. Later, they find landing marks and scorched trees in the area. There's actual physical traces.
So this wasn't just like a visual thing?
No, something was definitely there.
Wow. The fact that all this happened to military personnel and the authorities investigated it, it just adds this whole other layer of credibility to it, right?
Yeah, it's one of the most famous UFO incidents in Britain, for sure.
Makes sense. But not all encounters are quite so dramatic.
That's true.
In his book, Rutkowski also talks about cases that are just downright bizarre, like the Kelly Hopkinsville encounter back in 1955.
Oh, yeah, that one's wild.
Imagine you're in your home and you're fighting off these strange creatures.
And you're shooting at them.
You're shooting at them.
They describe these little glowing creatures with big heads and claws.
Oh my gosh. What do people think they were seeing?
Yeah, some say maybe it was owls. Or monkeys.
In the dark?
Yeah, misidentified in the dark. But the family, they insisted, no, this is what we saw.
Wow.
It really shows you how strong belief can be, even when other people are skeptical.
Yeah. It makes you think about what's going on psychologically.
Yeah. Was it mass hysteria, or was there actually something strange going on?
That's a tough one.
It really is. Then there's a Tully saucer nest case from Australia, 1966.
Okay.
Spinning, saucer-shaped object seen leaving behind these flattened circles of reeds.
Like something landed.
Like something landed and took off again. The Air Force got involved. They investigated these nests.
What'd they say it was?
Probably a water spout, they said.
A water spout.
But some people are still like, hold on, a water spout's not going to create those perfect circles.
Right.
So even with a possible explanation, there's still that little bit of mystery left over.
It's a little seed of doubt.
Exactly.
Oh.
And it just fuels more questions.
I love that these cases aren't just limited to one place.
Oh yeah, they're all over.
All over the world.
UFO sightings, they happen everywhere. Different continents, different cultures.
Rutkowski really digs into that global aspect in his book, It's fascinating to see how these sightings are interpreted differently around the world.
Yeah, like over in Asia. 1947, a platter sighting over China. This was even before the whole American flying saucer craze started.
Oh, really?
And then you've got the Akita, Japan incident in 76.
What happened there?
Disc-shaped object seen by a bunch of people. It just makes you think, maybe this whole UFO thing, it's a lot older and a lot more widespread than we usually think.
Older than we think. I like that. So it's not just a Western phenomenon. It's a global thing. All right, let's dive into some cases that are truly head-scratchers. Cases that just defy explanation.
Okay, let's do it.
1961, astronaut Alan Bean. On a space mission, he sees and photographs this large object in space. And to this day, NASA can't explain it.
You've got a trained observer in space, and they can't figure out what it was.
That's pretty wild. Okay, this next one is kind of unsettling. 1967, Malmstrom Air Force Base. UFO sighting. And at the same time, multiple nuclear missiles shut down. For no apparent reason.
Oh, wow. That raises some serious questions.
About what?
About whether someone or something might be interested in our nuclear capabilities.
Maybe trying to interfere?
Yeah, it makes you think, what if they can just shut those things down whenever they want? What does that mean for us?
That is unsettling. Rutkowski spends a good chunk of his book talking about the challenges of UFO research.
It's a tough field.
How do you balance belief with scientific rigor?
Right, it's a fine line. You want to be open to the possibility of the extraordinary.
Yeah.
But you also need hard evidence.
Mm.
And so much of what we have in UFO research is eyewitness accounts.
Right.
Blurry photographs, radar blips that could have other explanations.
It can be so hard to separate fact from fiction.
Especially when you're dealing with something as potentially huge as alien contact. Yeah, it's almost like you're trying to solve a puzzle, but you don't have all the pieces.
Right. You get these little glimpses, but it's hard to get a full picture.
And that's what makes it so fascinating. Now, there were a few cases that Rutkowski said really intrigued him. One that I thought was really interesting was Father Gill.
Father Gill.
Yeah, he was an Anglican priest in Papua New Guinea.
Okay.
Back in 1958. He started seeing these strange lights in the sky. At first, he didn't think too much of it, but then things got a little weird. Turns out the locals, the indigenous people there, they had been seeing these lights too.
Oh, really?
For quite a while. Father Gill thought, well, maybe it's Sputnik.
The Soviet satellite.
Yeah, it just launched.
Right.
But the movements of the lights, they didn't match up. It was something else.
Something else entirely. So what happened?
Well, things really ramped up in April of '59. Father Gill was at his mission station.
Okay.
And he sees this bright light on the side of a mountain across the valley. And it vanishes and reappears, like it's moving around intelligently.
Oh, wow. That's spooky.
And then, get this, a figure carrying a light, like a torch or something, comes out of the darkness.
It's like something out of a movie.
I know, right? Like, what are you supposed to make of that?
Totally.
And it gets even wilder. A few months later, Father Gill and his assistant, Stephen Moy, they see this disc-shaped object hovering overhead.
A disc.
People said it had legs on the underside. And it was moving around really low. This wasn't just a quick glimpse either.
Oh, yeah.
The sighting lasted for several minutes. Some people even said they saw humanoid figures on top of it.
Humanoid figure.
Standing on top of this disc. You know, this whole thing happening in Papua New Guinea, it kind of echoes what we see in other more famous cases, right?
Yeah.
The disc shape, the lights, the figures.
And it's happening all over the world.
Exactly. Different cultures, different continents, same kinds of stories.
It really expands the scope of the whole UFO mystery. All right, let's fast forward a few decades to the Belgian Triangle sightings.
Okay, this one's a big one.
This is from 89 to 91. Thousands of people in Belgium reported seeing UFOs.
And not just your average Joe. We're talking police officers, military personnel.
Wow.
These weren't just little lights zipping around either. They were describing these large, silent, triangular objects.
Triangles.
Yeah, triangles.
Yeah.
Moving in ways that no known aircraft could.
Mhm.
They've even got pictures and radar confirmations.
So this was pretty well documented.
Definitely. And it went on for a while. It wasn't just one night or anything. It was this wave of sightings. The whole country was basically captivated.
Sounds like it. Did anyone try to, intercept these things?
Oh, they did. The Belgian Air Force scrambled F-16s to check it out. But the UFOs always seemed to be one step ahead, outmaneuvering the jets like they knew they were being followed.
That's crazy.
It is. And despite all that data, all the eyewitness accounts, the radar, the photos, they never figured out what these things were.
Ugh.
Officially, it's still an unsolved mystery.
That's kind of cool in a way. Okay, I want to hear about this Trinidad Island case.
Okay, 1958.
We're going back in time a bit.
We are. Trinidad Island. It's this tiny volcanic island way out in the Atlantic Ocean. Almiro Barana, he's this guy who knows a lot about underwater photography. He's on the Brazilian Navy ship near the island.
Okay.
And he sees something strange in the sky. Not just one object, but two. A crescent-shaped object,
What?
and then another one that looked like a metallic gray disc. And he's quick. He snaps some photos before they disappear.
He actually got pictures.
He did. And these photos, they caused a lot of controversy.
I bet.
People were debating whether they were real or fake. The case was even discussed in the Brazilian parliament.
Wow. That's a big deal.
It was. Some people said the photos were fakes.
Mm-hmm.
But you had ufologists like A.J. Gevard who really believed they were authentic.
It's hard, right?
Yeah.
Photos can be so easily manipulated.
It's one of the biggest problems in UFO research.
You want to believe what you see, but it's not always that simple.
That's for sure. All right, this next case has this whole missing time element to it that I find really intriguing. 1975, Travis Walton.
Travis Walton?
Yeah, he was a logger in Arizona. Him and his crew were driving home from work one night.
Okay.
And they see this disc-shaped object hovering above the ground.
Whoa.
Walton, he's curious. He wants a closer look.
Till it gets out.
Yeah, he walks towards the object.
Oh, no.
And then all of a sudden, this beam of light shoots out and hits him. And then he vanishes.
He just disappears.
Gone. His coworkers, they freak out. They drive off.
Oh, my gosh. That's terrifying.
It is. Walton's missing for 5 days. The police think maybe his crew did something to him. They launch this big search. And then, just as suddenly as he vanished, he reappears.
5 days later.
5 days later. He claims he was abducted,
By aliens.
taken aboard the craft, examined by these strange beings with big black eyes, the whole 9 yards.
This sounds like a science fiction movie.
It does. And remember, this was back in the 70s.
Before alien abductions were, a thing.
Exactly. So Walton's story was a big deal. It really captured people's imaginations.
But I'm guessing not everyone bought it.
Oh no, the skeptics were out in full force.
What did they say?
They said he made it up. They pointed out inconsistencies in his story.
Right.
No physical evidence, things like that.
Makes sense. It's a tough one to prove.
Yeah, it's still a controversial case today. It
Yeah.
makes you think about memory, the power of suggestion, and whether people lie about something like this.
That's a lot to unpack. Let's go up north for this next one, the giant Yukon saucer.
This one's a good one, 1996.
Okay.
People in the Yukon Territory see this massive rectangular object in the sky.
Rectangular. Most UFOs are described as round, aren't they?
Yeah, but this one was different. It was huge, like the size of a Boeing 747. And it had all these lights, rows of lights all along the sides. People in Carmax, Pelly Crossing, even students at Yukon College. They all saw it. And the descriptions were really detailed. They were talking about rectangular windows, white, yellow, green, red lights. It was quite a sight.
Wow, it really does make you think there's stuff out there we just don't understand. But again, without any hard evidence, it's just another unexplained story.
Yeah, but it's a pretty amazing story.
It is, and it highlights that whole mystery that surrounds the UFO phenomenon.
We have all these amazing stories, these glimpses into the unknown.
But proving alien visitation to Earth with 100% certainty.
That's the really hard part. It's a tough nut to crack.
For sure. Now, Rutkowski wraps up his book with some really interesting thoughts about the whole UFO question. He makes this point that when you consider just how vast the universe is, the odds of there being life out there somewhere, they're pretty high.
Statistically speaking, yeah, it seems almost inevitable.
But he's careful to say that's not the same as saying aliens are visiting Earth.
Yeah.
That's where things get a little more complicated.
That's the real challenge.
Yeah.
Where's the proof?
And it all comes back to evidence.
Yeah.
Most of what we have in UFO research, it's eyewitness accounts.
Right.
Blurry photos, radar blips.
Things that could have other explanations.
Exactly. So how do you sift through all that and figure out what's genuine?
It's not easy. You got to be open-minded, but also skeptical.
You use your head.
Think critically. Not every light in the sky is an alien spaceship.
Right. Sometimes it's just a weather balloon. Or a drone. Or a bird.
Exactly.
It's like being a detective, you know? You got to piece together the clues, but you got to be careful not to jump to conclusions.
Absolutely. Rutkowski talks about this tension that exists in the UFO community between belief and skepticism.
Oh, yeah. There's definitely two sides to that coin.
You have people like J. Allen Hynek, a scientist who actually started out debunking UFO reports.
Oh, really?
But then he had some experiences that changed his mind, and he became one of the biggest advocates for serious UFO research. He even came up with the whole close encounter system.
Oh, yeah, the different types of encounters, close encounters, the first kind, second kind, and so on.
Yeah, he wanted to create a framework for understanding these different kinds of sightings. Then you have people like Philip J. Klass. He was a total skeptic.
A hardcore non-believer.
He spent his whole career debunking UFO reports, saying it was all misidentification, hoaxes, or just natural phenomena.
So two very different perspectives on the whole thing.
Exactly. And Rutkowski, he presents both sides. He doesn't tell you what to believe. He just lays out the information and lets you decide for yourself.
That's a good approach. So we've covered a lot of ground here, from Roswell to the Belgian Triangle, alien abductions to giant saucers in the sky. It's a lot to take in.
It is. And the question remains, are we alone? Or is something else out there?
Rutkowski ends his book with a simple but powerful message. Keep looking up. Keep asking questions. Don't lose your sense of wonder. Because the truth, whatever it may be, is out there somewhere, and who knows what we might discover next.